I never begin a project by trying to sketch out what I think the solution is. I begin by trying to restate what I think the problem really is. Because whether it's a self-assigned project or a brief that you get from a city, the problem is rarely correctly stated in a way that leads to a great solution. I've always been interested in art. It really wasn't until I began university that I understood that there was this discipline called design, which is really this hybrid of the two. Industrial design firms focus purely on one aspect of developing a product, whereas most graphic design firms will focus on the identity around a product. When you take these two varying approaches and you sort of meld them together, it allows you to really think about a product and a project in its entirety. Not only from what it will look like and function like and how it will operate, but how people will perceive it. I think the most surprising part of my job that most people wouldn't expect is sort of the role of fear. I am most interested when a project scares me, when I have absolutely no idea even where to start. And when something like that comes up and I find it the least bit interesting, I immediately say yes. When I'm stuck, I have a fairly simple solution. I immediately jump to another project and I move that along until I get to the point where I feel I'm getting stuck on that too. While you're focused on something else, a solution is going to present itself. That thing that's been stuck in the back of your mind is going to emerge and you can jump back and finish that. But also jumping between so many different projects is, I think, how we have the output we do for such a small studio. Technology plays a huge role in what we do. I mean, take the Bench project in Times Square. It went from a concept rendered out on a computer, presented digitally, approved by the appropriate parties. Digital files were sent to a manufacturer in Belgium who digitally extruded this in 3D printed concrete, and the final piece arrives in Times Square, and the first time I physically interact with it is on the night of the installation. Like, that's something that would be completely unheard of even 5 years ago. It started as a commission to design seating for public space in Times Square. One of the things that you think about if you follow the process about, okay, well, what should public seating do? Well, one of the things that public seating does, obviously, is they're in heavily pedestrianed areas. And the challenge with heavily pedestrianed areas is that one of the things they are is vulnerable to attack. In its non-functioning protective state, it's beautiful seating, which is interesting, visually stimulating, and provides a great space for interaction and traffic flow. It's infinitely configurable. It functions incredibly well for a set of public seating, but it also is a barrier of protection and is designed and developed to take impact from a massive vehicle traveling at great speeds, and it basically wraps and envelops itself around them, protecting all the pedestrians around them, and by their very nature creating a deterrent for someone trying to attack large groups of people. My name is Joe Doucet, and I'm a designer. And I think what I love most about TEDx is the opportunity to access so many different ideas from such a broad swath of people who give consideration to what they do, whether it is innovation in science, innovation in technology, things which try to gather people around a social cause, or make people generally aware of some of the challenges we face as both a culture and a people. What I think is important about wonder is the openness that it causes you to the wider world around you. Without a sense of wonder, we just make assumptions that things are the way they are and they need to be that way forever. I think when you open up yourself, when you open up your thinking, when you open up the broader world through a flowing of ideas, a sense of wonder is generally what is needed to change things. It's generally what is needed to cause action. And without it, we already know the course is set. But with a bit of wonder put into our lives, I think we have the ability to affect change on a much broader scale than if we just make assumptions about this is the way things are and that's the way they're going to be. Without a sense of wonder, I couldn't do what I do. And I think about wonder in terms of curiosity. Without a general curiosity about the world, about the way things are, about the status quo, about reimagining just the fundamentals of the objects which surround our daily lives. This is the core of what I do as a designer, is to
contemplate what they are, how they are, question whether they should be that way, and have a general curiosity about those objects, those situations, those paradigms. And in questioning them, that sort of leads me to have the ability to take a bit of a different point of view on what they are and what they mean to us. And it's really the fundamental foundation of all the work that I do as a designer. Hi TEDx team, thank you for putting on an amazing event. I was very, very pleased and honored to be a part of it. Being new manufacturing techniques to rethinking the way products are developed and consumed and the waste involved. 70% of the environmental impact of any product is created in the design phase. And what that tells you is that as a designer, you have a huge responsibility about what's put into the world and what its impact on the environment is. And I believe designers are now taking that a lot more seriously. When approaching a design problem, the first thing that I do is not to really begin with a ton of research, but really taking a few days to sit and really think about what we're setting out to do, what the real problem we're trying to solve in. It's not about inspiration, it's about insight. And insight takes a great deal of thought. There is constant learning, constant reading, constant seeking out different forms of inspiration that you can draw from. We recently moved the studio to Dumbo, which means down under Manhattan Bridge overpass. I love it because it's very old New York. At the same time, it also has a sense of quiet neighborhood, which is very rare to find in a city of this size. My ammo is the city of New York. Living in New York, I find, is one of the most inspirational experiences of my life. I grew up in a little rural town called Terrell, about 40 miles outside of Dallas. And the only thing important that's ever happened in Texas is that Jamie Foxx is from there, is from Terrell. That's basically the only claim to fame of the town, but I got the hell out of there the second I could, right after I graduated. We work on a lot of projects that are our own initiatives. We come up with concept ideas, whether those are products, whether those are new types of business models, whether those are new types of fabrications, whether those are new types of interactions. And that is really an entirely different process because we're not setting out to solve something specific. We're constantly experimenting in the studio and creating things that we don't necessarily know where they're going to lead. The word inspiration means, it actually means to breathe life into. And that's kind of the way I feel what the city does to me. I think there's something that happens to you on the everyday that really sort of defines you as a person, and New York is just filled with constant stimulation. And I think that from that stimulation, obviously your level of exposure to what it is that's going to